Shocking. Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, pay-per-view price revealed. Shakur Stevenson picks the winner. What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Cardinal Red Sports. Let's talk about it. Alright, y'all. So, I think this fight might flop. I was thinking about a week ago, this fight might be one of those fights that sets a precedent for super fights in boxing. But as usual, the promoters, the lawyers, everybody who invests in it within these fights are just looking to milk the fans once again. And when I read the article and they revealed how much the pay-per-view was going to be, it made me think, like, man, what is the reason that pay-per-views aren't selling anymore in the sport of boxing? And it got me thinking. When you think back to, back in the day fights like, let's say Tyson, Holyfield, that fight was a super duper fight in the sport of boxing, but I don't think that pay-per-view event actually exceeded $80. I don't think it was over the $80 mark. And then you had super fights like Maypac that came in, and it completely changed the whole sport of boxing around when it comes to pay-per-view events. Because if you remember back in the day when boxing was actually selling pay-per-views, it wasn't hard for an average name boxer to sell close to 1 million pay-per-views. As a matter of fact, you would more than likely sell 1 million pay-per-views even with a very small name. Like a Boots Ennis in the early 2000s would be selling 1 million pay-per-views on every event that he was on. But something changed. Something had to change. Now, I feel like it was the promoters, the people that host the venues. I think those people got greedy, and they decided somewhere along the line, especially after the success of Maypac, even though you could call that fight a flop, when it comes to the actual fight, it wasn't a good fight. It was a flop of a fight, but it sold millions and millions of pay-per-views. And I think what those investor people realize is, even with a horrible fight, as long as it's two built-up names, people will buy the fight. And I think that's why Oscar came out and said what he said when he said that he feels like this fight could do upwards of 2 million, 1 million to 2 million pay-per-view buys. And I think that's laughable in today's time, because they're not taking the fan in account. They're not being, aware of what's really going on in the world. Everything in the world has went up except for people's paycheck. It costs more to do everything except get paid. And it's kind of getting to a ridiculous level, because it seems like entertainers, athletes, sporting events, they're all taking advantage of the fan, and they're just charging more because everything else is going up. So why not charge more? I feel like this fight is a super fight, but this fight in the early 2000s would have been one of those no-name fights that I spoke about, because neither one of these guys got a belt. Neither one of them, other than their Instagram fame, have real boxing fame. They're not selling close to 1 million pay-per-views, and that really tells the tale. The real superstars, Canelo, Fury, Uzaki, Wilder, guys of that nature, they're selling those high numbers, even though they're not doing it every event, but they're pretty much selling close to 1 million or over 1 million every time they get in the ring. But this would be one of those fights. I mean, you got two really good boxers. Neither one of them a champion. Neither one of them have superstar boxing fame yet, because they haven't won really any credible titles. So it's hard for you to say that either one of them is on that that real level. So I think this would be one of those no-name fights, but it would still do close to 1 million buys. But in today's time where everything costs more, and the fan is the one caught in the middle because we're not getting any breaks from the promoters or the venues or the pay-per-view people. We're not getting any type of breaks. Back in the day when it came to that, like I said about that Tyson fight, a lot of Tyson's fights were under $80. A few of them might have been over, but that was later in his career. But most of the Tyson's fights back in the day were under $100. So, for them to be asking I believe it was $88 for the Ryan Garcia Gervonta Davis fight, $80-something for that fight. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think if you wanna actually start selling pay-per-views again for boxing, I think you got to go back to the old model. And what was the old model? Keeping the price low and the fans will tune in. If you give them a decent enough price point, people will pay for it in droves. If they took these fights back down to like $60, $65, a lot more people would pay to watch them. But I think what's going on is they realize that, and they've accounted for that, because if you remember, Steven Espinosa said that he feels like it's the fans who's kind of like cheating everybody out of super fights because we're not paying for the events and we're streaming a lot of the events as fans. And I feel like this, man. I feel like that the fan has been cheated for so long. Once they got something to not get cheated anymore, they were obviously going to use it. So if you're not cheating the fan, they'll tune in. If you're not charging me a price that is ridiculous, I might be willing to pay for it. So maybe that means that they should go back to the old model, which is bringing the price down, and more people will tune in. I think that that's the real problem when it comes to these super fights not getting made, because when they do make them, they want to charge you so much for them that nobody's going to tune in anyway. It makes boxing look even worse if they can't hit that million pay-per-view mark. It's crazy, man. I think if they brought the price back down, a lot of people would buy it. This fight, I thought, had the capability of maybe hitting 600,000, 700, and now I feel like they shot themselves in the foot with the price range. If they would have brought it down to like 65, they could have hit that number. Now I think a realistic number for this fight is somewhere around 350 to 425,000 buys. I think that's likely. I think they feel like, well, if people are just going to stream it anyway, let's put it at a price range to where people who can afford it will buy it because they can afford it, and the rest of them, we don't really care if they buy it or not, because at $85, as long as they get to 400,000 people to tune in, they're going to make their money back in droves. In droves, and the elite people are going to show up to the fight and pay to get in the fight, so they're going to make their money back. But it's almost like they're screwing the average boxing fan, but it's the new model in boxing. Shakur Stevenson picks the winner. So Shakur Stevenson said that he feels like Ryan Garcia's speed is going to be the reason that he loses the fight. It's basically, like I said in the past, that you can't just rely on your speed, your hand speed, and not put it all together with foot speed, ring generalship, ring IQ. You can't just rely on hand speed and power, because Gervonta Davis is a monster, and he has all those things in droves. He's a great ring general. He has ring IQ, good power. He has poise in the ring. So it's going to take Ryan Garcia to pitch a shutout to win the fight, and I just don't see it happening, man. So I have to agree with Shakur Stevenson on this one, that you're going to see a lot of good speed from Ryan Garcia, but it's also going to be what brings him down in the fight. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all that down in the comment section below. Hit that like button for me. Share. Subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. More than likely to get a response on the tube, so holler at me over there. If you want to collab, hit my Gmail, flockofcars@gmail.com. And we are, man,
he ain't that country, Now first off, I don't drink homemade booze. I don't leave home without my shoes. I don't go to parties and barns, don't get it confused. My cousin's not my boo, now that's nasty. They think our wigs all patched and nappy. Everybody's black and ashy, just so you never have to ask me. It's not what you think. If you think we're not dropping knots at the bank, now that's dumber than running at cops with a shank. You thinking I'm running and hopping in lakes, possum and snake over lobster and steak. Niggas look at me like I got to be fake, cause my clock operates with a watch in the face, equipped with alarm so I don't need a rooster. Nigga, it's the future, let me introduce ya, but you ain't used to. Truth, you know what I'm saying?
We ain't that country, we ain't that country, we ain't that country, we ain't that.
So what you
we ain't that country, so we ain't that country, so we ain't that country, we ain't that.
Niggas will murder you.
I said we ain't that country, we ain't that country, so we ain't that.
So what you think?
So we ain't that country, we ain't that country,
Niggas will. Now I ain't never milked a cow, but I will get bread from a heifer. I'm ahead on my schedule, getting bread on that level. Y'all niggas is two-faced. I slow a nigga's hustle down, leave him screw-faced. Now who laced that track? Sauce one, back at it again, backslapping your friends. Crack balance and gin, backsliding in sin. Max gotta attend to what that hustle brings in.